What's up? I'm back. Starting a pretty exciting job today. It's for me, it's not a work, it's not something I'm being paid for, it's a personal job. So this is my 2012 Suzuki Jimny that Dave, it's affectionately called, it stems from the David and Goliath fable, because he's a tough motherfucker, yeah. But yeah, so we go way back. Dave was actually my first car. Was driving him around in high school, so we'd it'd be nearly about 8 years I've had Dave. We've been through a lot. He's been up to the tip of Cape York. He's gone halfway around Australia, went on a 25,000 kilometre trip towing a trailer with a roof rack with an absolute mountain of gear. Went hard. He's now got a rebuilt high compression 1.5 litre engine to replace the stock 1.3, which goes a little bit harder. Loves Limmy. We both do. He's actually told me so yeah, and it's got some chunky big 32s on it, and it actually runs a transfer case from an automatic Jimny, which reduces the gearing 10% lower than stock, even with the big tires. So Dave actually rips pretty good. Like, he's a lot of fun to drive. In saying that, I've blown another diff, rear diff. It's the third one I've blown in it. You might say stop driving like you do, but I'd rather sell it than do that. So what I'm starting on today is putting front and rear Toyota Bundera diffs, housings, all that, complete diffs underneath the Jimny. So pretty excited for this. They've did a lot of research, checked out different models, MQ Patrol 75 series, which are pretty narrow but super heavy duty diffs, really heavy, all of that. And I really wanted to keep the 4.3 diff ratio in this because I love the gearing. So yeah, I guess I'll give you a little walk around. He's a little bit worse for wear, as per usual. He's never looked, well, that's a lie. He looked bloody fantastic when my poor parents bought it for me. But anyway, we live and we learn. So once the diffs are done, I'm going to be redoing this bar work. This is just bloody sheet metal. Bit of a experiment, I suppose. So I'll be doing tubular bar work with the new tube bender that I've got. That's a little while away though. Let's get the diffs under there. I'll just give you a little walk around. Made up some gullwings for it. It's got some tube flares at the back. They were going to be ute style toolboxes. This is a bit of a piss take, put a little door there, maybe store a ratchet strap or two. But yeah, that's it. So poor Dave has just been sitting up the top of this house. When I pulled him in after blowing the rear diff, I'll obviously get a video when I pull it down the back, but it's munched, eh? It's just like, it just vibrates the whole car. It's getting a lot of stares from the people walking their dogs out there. But yeah, that's Dave. A lot of history, me and Dave. We go way back. We're good mates. So pretty keen to drive him again. It really drives like nothing else. So I'm gonna go down the back and show you guys the Bundy diffs and a bit of a plan of attack. Alright, so back down the back, trailer, bus, mower, Falcon out the back there. So in this little shed, I've been storing some coily Bundera diffs, unknown condition. See how they go. So yeah, first up, gonna clean them. Fair bit of schmutz on them. It's like thick as. Yeah. So give them a really good clean. these radius arms, they have the, I can't forget what it's called, but the rod and the bushing at the end. Now the Jimny doesn't run them. It has radius arms with who are we? This style of bushing at the end. Seemed like an easier option to me. Something a bit easier to wrap my head around the geometry of it and all that. So what I've done is these, I've got 4 80 series front radius arms, which I haven't actually pulled them out and bolted them in, but the spacing here is awfully similar, you know, within a mil, this sort of thing, from my measurements. So once I've pulled out the diffs, clean them up, I'll remove those radius arms, confirm that those work, and then, so the way that I'm going to attach it to the car is to cut off the chassis U-shaped chassis mounts to suit this style of bushing that are on the Jimny currently, because they obviously won't work. These are wider, they're going to be in a different position, all that. And I'm going to have 4 chassis mounts, radius arm chassis mounts, laser cut, folded, so that I can then weld them onto the car, onto the chassis. Yep. Let's not talk about engineering here. This is probably the beginning of the demise for the road-going ventures of the Jimny, which I've considered engineering it. Not in my interest. If it gets taken off the road from a major defect or something, it's not the worst. I mean, it sucks, but it's not the worst thing. It's not like it's built for the road. It's built for dirt, fucking thrashing it, gnarly tracks, that sort of thing. So if it gets taken off the road, it means I can do long travel suspension and just go wild with it and not worry about any of the legalities and keeping it looking stock and all that stuff. Looking stock. Doesn't look stock at all, but you get me. So my plan is to delicately remove these while sacrificing the housing itself and maintaining all the metal on the retainer on these. Same deal on the Bundy ones. Delicately remove them without, or the opposite deal, I guess. Delicately remove them without damaging the housing, so that I can then weld those retainers onto this diff, and combine that with the chassis mounts. That'll have a rear diff sitting under it, and then, you know, I'll work on things like the panhard mount and shock mounts. So yeah, just gonna sorry, I'm just getting a bit distracted by the neighbours. It's a little bit embarrassing, you know. So yeah, that's it. Clean them up, start cutting off, well, do some measurements and stuff. I don't really know what I'm doing, sort of, you know, you got to consider angles and position and stuff, but this is going to be a good experiment for me to learn how suspension geometry works and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm going to pull them out of there, spray them down, degrease them, get them all clean. I'll check back in after. Rear diff is being cleaned up. Got it sitting there. So I'm just going to unbolt these radius arms and see if those 80 series arms fit. This is what I mean, like, I couldn't measure the exact center with all this stuff in the way. So rough measurements told me that they fit. Whether they've got the clearance underneath the diff or not, I'm not sure, but we are about to find out. All Right, so I've got one of the arms out and it's not looking great. This is the Bundy one. And there's a whole lot more clearance there. It's yeah, pretty unlikely that's gonna fit. So now we consider less than ideal scenarios. You know, how important is it to me to retain this? Because these are not going to fit. Do I brace this section, remove material from here? Probably not. Do I cut this and weld that onto there? Maybe. Maybe I do that. That's not out of the question. Or do I just get mounts that suit this style of joint? I don't really think I'm interested in that. I don't know why. There's just something about them that seems undesirable. I don't really know if they flex worse or handle worse or any of that. But they don't appeal to me for whatever reason, so I sort of think, just at the moment, that I'm leaning towards cutting this off and welding it onto there. I don't know. Anyway, I'll hold it up and yeah, probably confirm that they don't fit, but we'll see. You know what, I might just check if the hole centers are even the same distance apart for this. But that's a no. Hole centers are about, there's 8mm difference in them, so they're not even going to bolt up. But I'm still going to check if there's clearance, because I could just, maybe I'll just modify these mounts to sit further down, add some metal to them, drill out new holes. I don't know. Yeah, nah. Shit. So that hole's in, and we've got it sitting substantially lower down. So maybe that's the go. Maybe I just modify the mounts. That seems a lot more achievable, whatever, than what am I saying? That seems a lot more a better decision. Wow, I don't know what's happening just then. That seems like a better decision, to modify these mounts, drill out new holes, add the appropriate metal down here so I can have a hole down here and a hole out here. Well, that's bit of a setback, but not to worry, I'll get around it. All right, so I've had a little bit of time to think, and I reckon what I'm gonna do is use the 80 series radius arms. Pretty much, these need to come off. They're not gonna work. I don't wanna keep the stock Bundy arms. So everything, all these mounts are gonna come off, right? And then I'm going to put the spring hangers on, delicately cut these off, get them sitting in position, replicating the spacing and all that that's on this housing. And then I will make some brackets to suit the 80 series radius arms, and attach them to this diff, because the mounts on the Jimny are flimsy as shit, so they're like sheet metal pretty much, or the radius arm chassis mounts, absolutely shit. And the Jimny, I considered replicating this mount for the radius arm and putting that on that diff, but I don't want to keep the Jimny radius arms because they're super thin, super flimsy, and having longer radius arms, which I think the 80 series are like 50mm longer, as long as that doesn't interfere with driveline angles and stuff and geometry, which it might, that's going to be my plan of attack. Make new radius arm mounts for the diffs to suit the 80 series radius arms. That probably wasn't relayed very clearly. It's not very clear up here, so just bear with me, all right? I think I got this, maybe. All right, so now that I have some sort of plan, it might change, but that's not going to change the fact that I need to remove all these mounts. So I'm going to start cutting. Worked out that plasma cutter is going to do this a lot faster. I actually have one. I've used it a handful of times. Sits in the back of the trailer. Never plumbed it up, so just gonna, no, that's not actually to do with it. Plumb up some fittings so I can plug it into that hose, which goes down to my air compressor. And then adapt this and just hose clamp it onto there. See how we go. Alright, so plugged in. Probably going to trip the power to this place because it was built in the 50s. But we'll give it a crack. Been a while since I've used this thing. I only got an hour, a couple hours of experience on it, so here's hoping I don't gouge the actual housing. Cool, let's give it a go.
Nice, that was easy.
This is mad. Meanwhile, the new pup is just chilling. Okay, doesn't like the GoPro, but he doesn't even give a shit. You're the man, George. You're the man. Alright, I'm gonna go time lapse on this one and yeah, just work my way around it. Woohoo, this is great. So this is so much fun. Making good progress, nearly got this side all shaved off. Still obviously a fair bit to go, but I can't just film time lapses the whole time. The GoPro's running out of battery. I haven't got myself another one yet. So you're gonna go back on charge, you lot, and I'll check back in when all the bits have been cut off. Woohoo! Alright, so got one side all hacked off. saved myself a lot of trouble with the plasma cutter. So now to start on that side. Then I'll go through and grind it all back, make it flush, smooth, ready to start packing these off. Well, that was pretty hard work, but we've got a bare diff housing, which is pretty cool. One of those things I've only seen in photos, but now apparently I'm doing it. So, my god, a whole heap of stuff came off. Heaps of metal, heaps and heaps of metal. So now that that's bare and I've got rid of all the bits that I don't want and I'm not going to use, I think I'm going to take some measurements of the angles of these things, work out how far in, you know, from center they are, all that sort of stuff. Measure all the different bracketry, take some notes, whatever, because probably going to need them later. And then start cutting these off and maybe even tack them on. I don't know, we'll see. I don't really know what I'm doing, if you haven't gathered that already. Just trying to use some common sense or something along those lines. So yeah, we'll press on. Now I've got this Jimny diff set up on a arguably very primitive jig or sort of measuring device. So I've just got this straight edge clamped to the table face. I know this is 90 and this section goes up. I've then got the pumpkin, like this flange bolted or clamped, sorry, to this piece. So that I know that that is vertical, I know that this is flat. So I've zeroed out my little measuring box on the table, and then I chuck this on here. I don't know if you can see that. 5 degrees. So I know that these springs, I mean, look, there's probably a better way to do this in terms of geometry, but I don't know what that is. So I'm just going to replicate the geometry that's on this. I can use caster corrected arms. No, I can't use that because I'm redoing these. I still haven't decided if I'm going to keep the Jimny ones. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I know the angle that these need to then sit on that diff, and I also, again, super oh boy, brain's not working today. Super technical. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, technical. Very technical drawing here, just some measurements. So I know that I've got the width flange to flange. I stuck this tube inside it because I couldn't measure over the top of that pumpkin. So I've got the width, it's 12.47 wide. I know that the center of the coil retainer hat things sit 270mm in from this flange. So now I know that from center out, they need to be, there's 707mm between centers, or 353 from the center of the diff out, or diff housing out. So I'm going to go over here, find center, mark it somehow, or probably just go off the outside. I won't bother finding center. I don't really know. So now I know that wherever center is, I want those spring hats to sit 353.5mm out. So it's gonna be like there. Might need to clearance the mount that sits on that section, but we'll see. So now that I've got those dimensions, I'm probably gonna work on cutting these off. Yeah, I think we're progressing. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. You saw that, if the time lapse, if I'm able to slow it down enough, considering it was a time lapse. But this one had a lot of trouble getting it off. Obviously didn't cut right in the right spot, and I learnt on this one where I need to cut, and I didn't even touch this section at all, so I was smacking through weld, cracking weld the whole way around. And this one, I obviously learnt, wow, I don't know what's going on with my brain today. I learnt where to cut, gave it a couple good smacks, and off it came into my freaking face. This hunk right into my cheek. It's lucky one of the sharp edges didn't hit clearly. I don't know. Anyway, we're off. So that's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do now is clean up these, get rid of any weld material, and just, yeah, the weld material along the outside here, and then bring them back to the parent metal. Do that, and then I might need to make this radius bigger to suit this larger pipe. Yeah, just take those corners out. But yeah, cool. So, press on. Alright, so day one on the diff swap is done, albeit half a day. So, pretty happy with where I'm at. I've got the coil hats off the Jimny diff. All the mounts, as you can see, off the Bundy diffs. This one sitting roughly in position. Once I line that up, that'll be good to weld. This one, I need to notch the side of it because it starts to sit on this raise on the diff. Yeah, so that's the coils, you know, for the most part sorted. Still considering what to do in regards to radius arms. Now that, well, since I worked out that the 80 series radius arms don't bolt in to the mounts that were on the Bundy diff, I'm wondering what I do. Not entirely sure. That was sort of my plan, so a bit of a spanner there. I'm considering taking the same approach and delicately removing these Jimny radius arm mounts and just running aftermarket radius arms. They're a bit stronger and have corrected caster correction, I should say. So I think I might go down that route. I might see how I go, delicately cutting these off. It's a bit of junk involved. Sort of got the shock mounts on there as well. So yeah, not entirely sure. I would be able to cut that off. Replicating that would be quite simple. So not entirely sure. It's a bit of a work it out as you go if you haven't worked it out. So yeah, pretty happy with today's effort and accomplishments, all that. So hopefully it won't be too long till at least the rear diff is under the Jimny. So cool. Thanks for watching. I didn't seem to be able to string my words together today. I think wasn't entirely sure what I was doing, so probably had something to do with it. So thanks for putting up with me, listening to me mumble and ramble on. So yeah, see you in part 2. Cheers.